Well, good evening. My name is John Berfonski. I'm the Chief of Police here in Bedford, and thank you all for coming to BeBold's Bedford Building Our Lives Drug-Free's November presentation. Tonight's presentation is on vaping. Tonight we have with us for the presentation School Resource Officer Bill Spike Donahue and SRO Danielle Nightingale, as well as a pulmonologist, Dr. Ho, from the Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Centers here tonight to talk to you about vaping. What is it? Is it harmful? Is it harmless? What are the implications? What are the SROs seeing in terms of vaping use in the high school and the other schools? So tonight's presentation is going to be informative, interesting, and hopefully you'll learn a lot about what vaping is, what it is not, and whether or not it poses a risk to your children and to society. So, starting off.
Yes. All right.
Take it away.
All right. Good evening. How are you? I'm Officer Danielle Nightingale. I'm a police officer here in Bedford. I've been here for about 15 years. Currently assigned as a school resource officer K through 6 here in the Bedford school systems. This is Officer William Donahue, also goes by Spike. I'm sure you've all known him. He's been here since the town of Bedford was created, and 1750, and he's a school resource officer in the high school and middle school. We have a lot of material that we're going to go over this evening. We're going to go pretty much quickly through it. We want to obviously educate you and teach you, but we have a lot of material the doctor is going to go through as well as us, and we want to make sure we get to your questions as well. All right, so starting off, we're here to learn about vaping. So let's start off with our goals for this presentation this evening. What do we want to learn? Well, we want to give you a clear definition of what vaping is, okay? We're going to explain and provide different examples of e-cigarettes. We're going to show you how e-cigarettes are purchased, what draws people and youth to start vaping, some of the dangers, which the doctor will get into more detail than Officer Donahue and I, and laws pertaining to tobacco use in minors, and possible school consequences. We might have to pick the brains of a couple of the school principals that are here today. So what is vaping? Well, it's to inhale and exhale a vapor produced by an electronic cigarette or similar device. And we'll go over and we'll show you some examples in a minute. So just give it back. It started back in 1963 as a smokeless, non-tobacco cigarette, and it was provided various flavors to vapor. When it was created, it was meant to replace smoking tobacco, however, could not generate any type of commercial interest, so it went away. In 2001, commercial interest began again, and in 2004, it became full-fledged. So what are e-cigarettes? And here are some examples of what some of the e-cigarettes look like.
I can give you some examples. You can see up here, there's some examples. There's pen types. There's, I don't know the name of that, but it's a device that's pretty popular with older people. I got some devices up front here. They're called, if anyone got to see them, they're called Juuls. These are small ones, they're more high-tech. These are very, very popular with younger people, and I'm going to leave these up here at the end if you want to come up and take a look at them. But they come in various different sizes, things like that. But these Juuls are pretty interesting because they almost look like one of those, what are they called? Flash drive, yes, yep. Exactly. And to charge these, because these type of machines run on batteries, these get charged in your computer. They plug them right in. It looks just like a, if you wouldn't know, you'd be surprised. And it's interesting, like some of your faces. I did a presentation at the high school, just a quick one, to the teachers, just saying, hey, this is what the kids are using. And I showed them, and if you could have saw their faces, like some of them were like, I think they might have been charging me in my classroom, because they had no clue. You know, and it's so true. So they had no clue. So there's all different types of it, all the way from pen type to Juuls to the ones that almost looks like cigarette lighters to homemade ones.
Okay. So electronic cigarettes are devices that usually look, feel, and act, and can even taste like real cigarettes. It provides you with nicotine, and the act of smoking is powered by a rechargeable battery, which Officer Donahue just explained to you. More examples of different types of e-cigarettes. And you can buy them in kits. They are also referred to as personal vaporizers, vape pens, e-cigars, e-hookahs, vaping devices, as well as weed vaporizers. And we'll get into that a little bit more in more detail later, because I know that's a big question amongst all of you guys.
There's all kinds of names from them. Those are like the most popular ones.
We have a quick video, about 3-minute video that we'd like to show to you. Explains a lot of different facts, and then we'll get into more details as we go along.
E-cigarettes. They're becoming more and more popular, but a lot of people are unfamiliar with the health risks and health benefits these devices have to offer. Here are 5 things you probably didn't know about e-cigarettes. Number 1, what they are. E-cigarettes, also known as electronic cigarettes or vaporizer cigarettes, are devices that emit a dose of nicotine that is then inhaled. These devices can also produce non-nicotine vaporized substances like marijuana. The device itself is generally a glass or metal chamber which has an electrical current passing through it. These pens heat substances to a controlled temperature which creates a vapor with minimal combustion, meaning you can inhale much less harmful smoke than cigarettes produce that is linked to damaging lungs from smoke inhalation. Though vapor is less harmful than smoke, it is still harmful nonetheless. Number 2, smoke and vapor are 2 different things. Smoking is the byproduct of combustion. Combustion converts entire substances being burned into carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The carbon then collects into carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide and the pure carbon that creates smoke. Vapor, on the other hand, is a mix of the active components being released when plant materials are heated. The oils from the botanicals change into gas form when hot air passes through the botanical. Some of you have no idea what I just said and are looking at the screen like a deer in headlights. The difference here ultimately comes down to what science defines as smoke. Smoke is defined as a visible suspension of particles in air emitted by a burning substance. Vapor is defined as a substance suspended or diffused in air. Basically, the difference is the word burning. Burning requires a combustion. That's what cigarettes do when they are lit and smoked. Vapor does not have the same process of combustion. It is simply heated, not burned. Number 3, e-juice. E-cigarettes generally operate using e-juice instead of dried tobacco. The juice contains water, nicotine, a base, and sometimes flavoring like cotton candy, cherry, watermelon, chocolate, and more. However, a growing number of research shows that some of the liquids used in electronic cigarettes contain flavors that once inhaled have been linked to minor irritations in the lung to rare yet serious lung diseases. For example, some e-juices contain diacetyl, a chemical that has been linked to cause bronchitis, a life-threatening lung disease. In fact, researchers at the Cardiac Surgery Center in Athens tested over 159 sweet e-juice liquids and found that 74% of them contained diacetyl. Due to the minimal regulations, and in some regions no regulation at all on these products, it's hard to fully know what you're getting as there are more than 7,000 flavors being sold under more than 450 different brands. Number 4, the danger of the device itself. There are quite a few cases of e-cigarettes exploding in people's faces. In Toronto, Canada, a former TFC defender suffered from severe burns, a broken cheekbone, and a concussion when an e-cigarette battery pack blew through his cheek. Some of the damages caused from e-cigarettes are so severe it has forced individuals to get facial reconstructive surgery and have caused first, second, and third degree burns. Number 5, age requirement. In Canada, no person can sell e-cigarettes to someone under the age of 19. However, in some regions, the age requirement is only 18. Those caught selling e-cigarettes to minors will face similar charges as one would selling cigarettes to minors. That's it for this week, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, hit that subscribe button because I put out videos that are similar to this one on a regular basis on my channel.
So purchasing e-cigarettes. There are multiple ways that you can purchase e-cigarettes. First of all, is online is one facet on how you can purchase e-cigarettes. So we did a lot of research when we were given this assignment, and we went on the internet quite a bit, went on multiple different sites to figure out where you could purchase this stuff. And a lot of the sites, the first thing you do if you typed in, I want to purchase vaping products, or if I want to purchase an e-cigarette, you'd click on the icon to go into it, and it'd bring you to a box that looks similar to this. And all it asked you when you originally, are you 18 years old? And if you hit yes, then they continue on to the site. If you hit no, it says, well, you need to be 18 to access the site. Well, we all know that anybody that's interested in this is going to hit the yes, and then you're going to be able to go onto a site similar to this. We found that in pretty much every site that we went on.
Yeah, and it's pretty funny. You probably can't see it because it's so small, but it doesn't say, are you 18? It says, hey, we got to ask. Are you 18? Like it's no big deal. Hey, we got to ask. So I kind of got a chuckle out of that.
So online purchases are one means of purchasing. Also, obviously, you can go out to retail stores. So I just happened to put a Google search into the computer and said, how many retail stores are in just the proximity of Bedford, Manchester area? And I got 14. And I actually got educated myself after having a conversation with the chief. I didn't think we had any places in Bedford that sell e-cigarettes, but there's a new place that just moved into Woodbury Court, which is off South River Road in the area where the new Macy's is, that's actually selling those now. So there's approximately 14, but one in particular here in Bedford now. and you see them everywhere.
One other place I found out, because obviously the SRO works in the high school, I work with the teenage kids. I haven't caught anyone doing this, but I've heard that as a money-making thing, someone that's 18, 19 years old will actually go to these stores and buy these devices. Some of them $45, $50, $80, will come back and sell them to the younger kids, $100. So they make it $20 at a pop. They'll get the money from the kids first, then go purchase it. So a lot of our younger kids that are not old enough are getting it from older kids that's the way to, I don't know, you have to call them dealers, but that's how they're making their money. They will go purchase it and sell it to the younger kids. So I found that very interesting to hear.
So the cost of purchasing an e-cigarette depends on the area in which you live. A single disposable will range from, and single disposable would be something along the lines of Juul or one of those cigarette ones, will range around $6 to $12 and is equivalent to 2 to 3 packs of cigarette. So, you know, being the mathematician that I am, I went in and I broke it down a little bit. In 2015, the cost of an average cigarette pack was $6.44. So if you smoked 1 pack a day, it would cost you for the year $2,354. If you were to purchase an e-cigarette, because it's 3 days worth for $12, you're looking at $1,452, where you're saving a year at $902 a year. So it's actually a cost-saving effort, believe it or not, to purchase e-cigarettes at this point.
We got this one. Yeah. What draws people to vaping? Younger people and actually adults. When I mean adults, the most people I see adults that are vaping are usually 18 to maybe 30. Not saying that older people don't do it either. But what draws it? Curiosity is a big thing, especially for the younger people. Curiosity, it's the hot thing out there now. They hear about it. They're advertising it as not being, dangerous. It's not smoking cigarettes. They know, especially younger people, they know, oh, we don't want to smoke tobacco. We don't want to smoke tobacco. But they hear this, oh, there's no, they're told no nicotine, or it doesn't have all those dangerous chemicals. So it can't be that bad for you. And that's what's drawing them to it. So curiosity is a big thing. And again, it's being reported less dangerous. They show, when they advertise, they show glamorous tricks. I know a lot of things we keep showing, these O-rings. That's a big thing now. Kids will get together as a group and they see how many rings they can blow, things like that. So it's almost a game to them, a lot of them. So when I talk about young kids, I'm talking like 14, 15, 16-year-olds, freshmen. People, they wouldn't even look at tobacco. Like, no way. But when it comes to this, they don't think it's dangerous, and it's a game.
And if you go on YouTube, if you just put glamorous tricks or smoke rings in YouTube, there's thousands upon thousands of videos of adults as well as kids doing that just to show tricks and see what they're able to do.
And I have them doing. I talk all the time to kids and even adults at that. And I say, hey, why do you vape? What's the big deal? What's it? And these are the things we're hearing. Curiosity. Oh, what's the big deal? Everyone's doing it because it's the hot thing now. They call it the hot thing. But curiosity is the big thing. Okay, it's thought that e-cigarettes contain no nicotine. That's what these younger kids, the kids think there's no nicotine. Or there's only a little bit of nicotine. It's not that bad. But actually, there's a lot more nicotine in the juices they were talking about than in a tobacco cigarette. We talk about the juices. We'll talk about this later. But this is some of the juices they use. So feel free to come up after and look at the juice that they put in there into those machines. Just about all e-cigarettes or the juices contain nicotine. Now they're starting to come out with juices, they're advertising no nicotine. But I'd probably say, I don't know it's for a number, I'd probably say like 95% or if not more of those juices contain nicotine. And the reason they contain nicotine, and this is why especially older people started using e-cigarettes or these type of things, because they're trying to quit smoking. So they still need to get their little bit of nicotine, but they're not getting all those other negative chemicals that come with it.
They think.
Right. Good one. And this is a good one too. Instead of quitting, many e-cigarette users continue to use e-cigarettes while still smoking cigarettes. And it was interesting. I worked a job this past Wednesday over at Whole Foods. And I kind of got chuckled because I was there for 9 hours out front. I had to sit in front of Whole Foods for 9 hours. So what am I going to do? And I was amazed at how many people vape. Like older people. I didn't have any kids come in, but 20, 21. And every time I saw a vapor, I'd go, hey, can I talk to you for a second? It was funny. That was my whole day. I must have talked to 10 different people about vaping. They were adults, 20, 20, but it's amazing the information I got from them. And many of them, well, almost all of them, said that they started vaping because they wanted to quit smoking. and they knew that that's how they could get nicotine. They thought they could cut down, but they still continued. I said, well, would you smoke tobacco now? And they go, oh no, but if someone gave me a cigarette for free, I'd do it. So it isn't like it's keeping away, it's a cost factor, which we talked about earlier, especially with these people. I actually had one girl tell me, oh, my boyfriend's never ever smoked tobacco in his life, but he sees me vape, and he tried vaping, and now he vapes more than I vape. So it's kind of, it's a curious thing, but it was interesting to talk to people that vape, and they all, I found not one person was like, I'm not talking to you. They love talking about it because it's so popular. They loved it. I asked them where they get their stuff. Most of them get it online, but they do go to those stores. It was a pretty interesting talk, especially talking to the adults.
Definitely.
To start, there's no secondhand emissions from e-cigarettes, but there's an aerosol vapor emitted by cigarettes and exhaled by using containing carcinogens. Yeah, I knew I was going to screw up that word. What is it?
Carcinogens and formaldehyde. Clap it out.
And again, we're going to learn a little later. There's so many things that come out of these e-cigarettes that we don't even know about yet. You know, dangers. We know some of them, but a lot of those harmful effects, we don't even know what's coming out of them yet until the effects start affecting us, which is going to be down the road. So
there's obviously lots of symptoms. They've pegged it down to about 405 different type of physical symptoms that can be reported by using e-cigarettes. I'm just going to go over just a couple of them. That's going to be gone over a little bit later. However, it is believed just similar to nicotine, high blood pressure, insomnia, stroke, cancers of the respiratory tract and blood, irregular heartbeats, wheezing, shortness of breath, lung inflammation, decreased immunity to colds and lung ailments, upset stomach, headache, dizziness, and fainting, nervousness, and agitation. Just to name a few, because it's really good for you. Can you smell someone vaping? Does anybody want to try to answer that? Do you think you can smell somebody vaping? Yeah. I would agree with you on that, definitely. Yeah. But the answer is actually yes and no, depending on the product that's being used. The way that they're marketing it right now depends on the scents and flavors that that you purchased. If you had come up here earlier and smelled these, a lot of them, those bottles are straight nicotine with a smell to it. It smells really nice. Yep. One of them is mixed berry. I'm like, I really like the smell of that mixed berry, but it's mixed berry with a whole lot of nicotine. Yeah. These products are made to be enhanced. Those flavors are made to enhance what you're using so that you use it more and more and more. Yeah, I will say they do sell the stuff that doesn't have the smell, you know, the cartridges. But no, the reason people do this is they like that flavor, especially the people I was talking to. I said, oh, can you really taste the flavor? Oh yeah, they were like, oh yeah, definitely. And that's what draws the kids too. You can really taste the flavors, and there's got to be over 200 flavors. Did they say how many? I don't know. There's so many flavors up there. So you can taste when you do this vaping. You can taste that flavor, and that's what they like, and that's what they want. Right. Right down from the kids, right down to right up to adults. So as I say, some products are marketed to be discreet, and other ones have little to no scent. But there is some sort of scent with all of them. Mm-hmm. So can you vape different types of other substances? The answer is yes. There are many substances out there that are common on the market that can be vaped. I'm just going to go over what they're marketing a little bit on different ones because your jaw's going to drop. Alcohol. So I did a lot of research on this one for the alcohol. I'm like, why would you want to smoke alcohol? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So they'll use vodka. They'll add orange juice. They'll put different types of flavoring in it, and they'll vape alcohol just to get the flavoring out of them. Now my favorite one is the catnip. Even the chief put his eye up to that one when we were discussing catnip. So they say it is reported that it offers anti-anxiety effects, euphoria, and relaxation. So apparently smoking catnip or vaping catnip is supposed to make you feel good. It brings down your anxiety level. Yep. Honey, they say that although you don't really get much effects from it, it's really nice when you inhale it and it tastes really sweet. So people do honey just for that reason. Thyme reduces hypertension, blood pressure, and relief from respiratory conditions, according to what they try to promote. And green tea, when you have it in herb form, and we'll go over the different types of forms that you can have as we go on through, provides antioxidant, better brain functionality apparently, decreased risk of cancer, fewer headaches, and less depression. Mm-hmm. Ginseng, increased energy, less anxiety. It lowers cholesterol, smaller risk of diabetes, reduced stress, and relaxation. And last but not least, lavender. It's highly popular because they consider it an essential oil, and is reported to decrease blood pressure, lower heart rate, and reduce skin temperature. I don't necessarily believe any of that, but that's how they market it.
And it's interesting. I suggest that all of you go online, and there's I was using mostly, there's a website they call Vape World, and they talk about all this, but it's interesting how they market this, like, oh, you got anxiety, try this. But it's not only to get the kids to try that, or younger, well, they say adults, but it's once you're on their website, then you start looking and get all the other stuff they have. And that's what draws kids in there. They start seeing the stuff.
So do all those flavors also have nicotine in them?
I don't believe they do.
Not all of them, no. So these are just your over-the-counter stuff that you could do, or you can make it your own home. For example, the thyme, in the ginger, you can grind that up on your own and put it in the vaporizers. I mean, catnip, no, they do not sell catnip flavored vape.
Well, you can buy that on that, like I'm thinking that Vape World, you can buy this stuff. And I'm thinking that they're drawing kids, so so maybe someone's got anxiety, let me try this. But once they have the vape machine, now they can just move over to the other stuff, the juice and things like that. So it's almost like a marketing product to get kids or younger people, or anyone to even try vaping. And then once they get the machine or the vaporizer, now they're going to try other things.
Okay. Moving on. Can you vape marijuana?
What do you think?
If you can vape catnip, you can most likely vape marijuana. So there are currently 3 different devices used for vaping marijuana, and they're commonly known as weed vaporizers, which we gave at the beginning of different types of e-cigarettes that are out there. There's handheld portable devices that you see coming around, walking around. Usually they're a little bit bigger. There's pen style, and then there's the desktop. And there are 3 different types of marijuana products that can be used in these different machines. These machines are a little bit more expensive than the regular vape because they have to heat up a little bit different, and they cost a lot more up front. Just to give you a heads up.
I can even do the next one.
Yes,
the
please.
Dry herb is like you take the marijuana and you got to really grind it up fine to get it into the weed vaporizer, and obviously it burns and you breathe in the smoke, not smoke, but the vape from it. Another one is the e-liquids, like we keep talking about. I keep showing them up here. That's another one. And then there's dabs. And I'm not going to go too much into what dabs are, but dabs are a part of the marijuana plant that they will melt down and they'll turn it into oils. They melt out the THC out of the oils, and this is all in the black market, if you want to call it that. This isn't something you buy at the store, but the dealers will melt that down, and they get it to a certain temperature that it turns to an oil. They actually call it it almost looks like butter, but they melt it down to an oil. And what they will do is once they get to a certain temperature, they will take a syringe and they will suck the liquid, and they'll actually put it in these little cartridges. This is the cartridge that goes, I know you can't see it, but there's a little cartridge. They will actually inject it into here, and then it turns to butter again, almost like butter again. But when you put it in a vaporizer, it heats up again to the oils, and then they start vaporizing that. Now in a dab, you're getting straight THC, which is the chemical in marijuana that messes you up, if you want to call it, what people want. They want the THC, so that's what dabs are very important for someone that's smoking marijuana, because it's like straight THC. So that's what the black market, if you want to call it that, or the dealers will do. They melt it down, inject it into these cartridges, and then they'll sell them. You can't buy them in a store, obviously, or online, but they'll sell them like a drug dealer. So that's getting very popular too.
And the e-liquids you will also see for medicinal uses. They will use that for medical marijuana and stuff like that. There are some medicinal uses for that.
Yeah.
Anybody think that you can smell vaped marijuana?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah? Yes, no?
Yeah. I'm sure, well, I shouldn't say it this way, but I'm sure most of us have smelled what marijuana smells like. Not saying you have to use it, but the smell of marijuana. You can have raw marijuana, which smells disgusting. But if someone's smoking marijuana, if you go to a concert somewhere, you can usually smell and say, whoa, that's marijuana.
Like a skunk?
The skunk smell.
Like a skunk smell, yeah.
From a vape, you're going to smell the smell, but it's definitely not going to be as strong as if someone was smoking a joint or a marijuana pipe. It's not even close to that. You'll get a faint smell, but you're not going to get that strong smell. So if someone's on that side of the room, you probably won't even smell it.
You won't necessarily smell it from the vape itself, but you will smell it from the device. So if you're close enough to the device because it heats it up, then you'll be able to smell the marijuana coming from it.
So obviously if someone smoked the marijuana pipe, I was in this corner, you would all smell it. But vape marijuana, you probably wouldn't if you were in the back.
And if it's a flavored, would you be able to smell it?
No, it's usually not flavored at all.
It's usually not flavored at all.
Because it's on if you want to call it the black market or whatever, drug dealers do it, so they don't put flavor in it. You're just going for the THC.
Okay. So let's get into the New Hampshire laws a little bit. When it comes to possession of use and tobacco products. I'm not going to read the whole RSA, but under New Hampshire law, E-cigarette falls under the possession or use of tobacco products or nicotine by minors. So if you are under the age of 18 years old, you cannot attempt to purchase, possess, or use any tobacco product, e-cigarette, or liquid nicotine. I can't stress this part, the e-cigarette part. It is lumped into the tobacco laws. Okay, so if you're under the age of 18, you cannot purchase this, and that's why we told you the different means and the ways that kids go about doing this. If they are found to be in possession of a tobacco product, anybody that's under the age or over the age of 12 years old is in violation of the New Hampshire law, and can be subject to a fine not to exceed $100 per offense, as well as 20 hours of community service.
Yeah, can you go back to this slide for a second?
First one?
The big thing that I found doing my research is the use of tobacco products. When it comes to e-cigarettes or things like that, like, what if you have this juice and it doesn't have nicotine in it? You have nicotine-free juice. Is it illegal now to have? Doesn't have nicotine, and that's the part that makes it illegal, the nicotine. So we found, and it's actually through the FDA from the government that's actually come out with this law. New Hampshire's, it's not only New Hampshire, all the states. This is so new, they're trying to catch up on everything. They don't even have real laws, if you want to call it, to cover this. Everything comes through the FDA. Well, they'll probably put up the use of tobacco products. They consider all these machines or vaporizers tobacco product, and that's what we use right now. If we catch them with that use of tobacco products. So there are companies like Vape World and other companies that deal with this stuff that actually try to sue the FDA saying, no, we don't get, this ain't tobacco products, this is something totally different. And it went all the way up to the courts, and the court actually sided with the FDA, saying, oh, they're tobacco products. But in my research, I found that it won't be long before these companies are going to win their suit. So that's why the states need to come up and start making these, make some laws to put them on the books. Because like they said, it won't be long before the FDA is going to lose their hold on that. So right now, that's what we hold our hat on when we catch someone with this type of stuff, that's underage, tobacco products, because it fits under that category.
So is it legal for minors to use nicotine-free products? I think you kind of just covered that.
Yeah, I kind of just covered that. It's not so much if they have the product, it's the device and things that use it, that fits under the thing of tobacco products. But like I said, it's not going to be long before those companies are going to win that lawsuit, and then it's not going to be considered tobacco products.
So the Bedford School District has policies on tobacco products. There's a lot in the policy. I would refer to the SAU website where all the policies and procedures are listed on there. But in particular, I just want to stress that it is strictly prohibited on all school grounds or facilities or vehicles, or any person can have any type of tobacco product maintained by the school district. And it explains what tobacco products means. It's pretty much what the RSA says. It's cigarettes, cigars, snuff, smokeless tobacco, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you could be subject to discipline. I believe it is, 5 days, or is that for alcohol?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I don't recall. Yes, please. I looked right at you for it.
I'm Bob Dizokis. I'm the associate principal at the high school. Because the marijuana product can go in these devices, the tobacco piece aside, we call them drug paraphernalia.
Drug paraphernalia.
Are suspended for up to 10 days. Typically, that can be reduced to 5 if they work with our drug and alcohol counselor. But so it's typically 5 days for these.
Yeah. Great. So since you can use marijuana out of these machines, the school has been, depending on every situation is different, they'll sometimes use the charge of possession of drug paraphernalia over tobacco. But either way, the school has serious consequences for possession of tobacco too.
All right. And then just last but not least, the policy when it comes to drug and alcohol. I think this is where I got my confusion with the whole 5-day, 10-day thing.
Yeah.
You just can't have it within the school district. And again, I would ask you to refer to the SAU website to get more details on that.
And one other thing before we go, can you smoke this stuff in public buildings and stuff? Because it's not smoking supposedly, right? It's vaporized. They call it every store or private facility or schools, they can actually make their own law saying we don't permit this to be happening in our business. It's almost like you can post like no weapons, so they can make their own. So that's the way that they're doing it right now, till we get laws on the books in New Hampshire on that. Let me read this. Okay, if you're a long-term cigarette smoker and haven't been able to cut back on smoking using approved methods, e-cigarettes and vaping devices appear to be safer alternative than continued smoking, cigarette smoking. So I guess when you vape, you're not getting all those tar and all that stuff from the tobacco product. But we don't know the real dangers that are going to come out of this stuff yet. And this is, if you don't smoke or use other forms of tobacco or nicotine, staying clear of e-cigarettes and other vaping devices. The potential risks to your long-term health outweigh any enjoyment in the moment. So the real effects of this stuff, we're not even, it's so new that it haven't even come out yet, if you know what I'm saying. We know some of them, which we're going to hear about, but I think the real effects are going to come down the road 15 to 20 years.
So thanks for inviting me tonight to talk a little bit about e-cigarettes, vaping, and its impact upon kids and our health. My name is Joseph O. I'm a pulmonologist with Dartmouth-Hitchcock. I'm also a ICU doc with CMC. I'm going to kind of reiterate some of the information that we've already discussed, going to run through some of the stuff that's already been addressed. And just to reiterate, this is a novel invention. You know, e-cigarettes were really not introduced until the 1960s. And then in 2003, it was actually commercialized for the first time by a Chinese pharmacist. In 2006, it was introduced into Europe, and in 2007, it was actually introduced into the US market. In 2009, President Obama during that time gave FDA the power to regulate the tobacco industry. And in 2016, the Surgeon General during that time, Dr. Murthy, had actually released the first document addressing e-cigarette use amongst youth and young adults. And they concluded that the use of nicotine products of any form, including e-cigarettes, were deemed to be unsafe. In 2016, there was some regulations that were being pushed in terms of e-cigarettes and vaping products, but actually in August of 2017, a lot of this actually was reversed. And so a lot of these oversight and regulations have been pushed out to 2022. There's been more of a focus on reducing the total amount of nicotine in current products. So you can see that big tobacco is also involved in e-cigarettes. And so these are some of the products. These are on the left-hand side are some of the big tobacco companies and the various e-cigarettes that they've actually released on the market. So trends in e-cigarette use from 2011 to 2015, you can see that there's been a progressive rise in terms of the usage of e-cigarettes in both middle school students and also high school students. And there's been a much more sharp increase from 2013 to 2015. The rise of e-cigarettes is pretty notable, so as smoking has continued to decline. So from 2011 to 2016, the amount of middle school students who've been smoking went from 4% to around 2%. And for high school students, it declined from 15% down to 8%. In contrast, there's been a steady rise in terms of e-cigarette use. In middle school, it's gone from 4% to 11%. And in high school, from 2011 to 2015, it's gone from 1.5 to 16%. And this is really reflected even in Bedford High School. So this is a 2015 Youth Risk Behavior Survey in Bedford. And it compares our school system with the region and also that in New Hampshire. And you can see that there's been a slow usage of conventional cigarettes. 6.3% of high school students reported using conventional cigarettes. But you can see that in terms of the usage of electronic vapor products, it was around 25%, which I thought was particularly high. That's about 350 students out of around 1,400 respondents. And you can see that the trends are pretty similar between men and women. And as you go from 9th grade until 12th grade, there's a progressive increase in terms of usage overall. And we pretty much are on track in terms of the region and also the state of New Hampshire. So cigarette use, e-cigarettes, we talked about it just briefly previously. E-cigarettes are usually formed by several components. You have the LED lights, you've got the lithium battery, you've got an atomizer, which is heated with coils, and that releases the vapors, which are inhaled and exhaled. And you can see that there's been a lot of different generations, a lot of different forms of e-cigarettes that have been developed over time. You can call them e-cigarettes, you can call them vaping products, vapes, e-hookahs down at the bottom. They're all pretty much the same. With each subsequent generation, though, the battery life increases, the ability for users to modify these products increases, and that may enhance the release of a lot of the substances into the atmosphere. The main components of the e-juice, typically it entails nicotine, propylene glycol, which is pretty much ubiquitous in a lot of the different ingredients in food products. It's glycerins, usually vegetable glycerin, and also flavorants. And you can see that e-juice is marketed towards a variety of individuals. For example, in this one, there's vape bartender. I guess it's aged with European red oak barrels. So you can see that there's a lot of, it's almost like a fine wine or fine liquor in some ways. But in general, you can see that, you've got bubblegum flavored, chocolate, cotton candy, there's gummy bear. So you can kind of get a sense of exactly who they're marketing these products out to. Now, I'm a pulmonologist. The majority of my patients are, probably 70% are over 60 years old. A lot of them are smokers. And in the last 10 years, I've probably only had one person ask me much about e-cigarette usage for smoking cessation. The majority of our patients who do use vaporizing products and e-cigarettes are probably in their 20s and 30s. So nicotine and also the teenage brain. So what are some of the effects of e-cigarette use, especially amongst the youth? So we know that the adolescent brain is not fully developed until age 25, and nicotine certainly can have a lot of detrimental effects. It can lead to addiction, it can increase mood disorders, attention deficits, impulse control. And so we're going to address some of those issues regarding the effects of nicotine. The use of e-cigarettes and vaporizing products can also lead to the use of other illicit substances. It can also increase the risk of using traditional cigarettes as well. And e-cigarettes also contain nicotine, ultrafine particles, heavy metals, and also various volatile organic compounds. So nicotine in the teenage brain, we know that nicotine is a stimulant. It can cause release of epinephrine, which can increase heart rate, blood pressure, respiratory rate. It also increases the release of dopamine, and so you get a lot of dopamine receptors that are upregulated. And this leads to various changes in terms of the young brain, which is still developing. It can lead to increased risk-taking, impulsivity, decreased attention span. It also increases the risks of engaging in high-risk behaviors and addiction to other drugs and substances as well. We know that adolescents who discontinue the use of nicotine experience cravings, withdrawal symptoms, and also depressive symptoms. And it can really have long-term neurocognitive effects as well. There's also a lot of behavioral risks which are involved. E-cigarettes use is linked with the use of other tobacco products, including cigars, hookah, and smokeless tobacco. But as the officers mentioned, you can pretty much vape any products. Liquid THC, bath salts in Florida, there's a lot of news about that. Flocka, which is a synthetic bath salt, is also often seen in the news. MDMA or ecstasy is also used, and also synthetic marijuana. So I did a quick search, logged on to Reddit, did a few kind of searches. You probably can't see a lot of this information here. It's probably too small. But it's basically a verbal exchange between two users on Reddit talking about different things that they can basically break up and smoke. They talked about using Adderall, methamphetamines, LSD, cocaine. I'm also going to try using cocaine and crack, is what one person described. You can also see that you can purchase a lot of these products online. So is the vapor that's produced just harmless? Well, we know that a lot of the vapor products contain nicotine. It also contains propylene glycol, which is also a preservative that's used in a lot of foods, vegetable glycerins. There's also various flavoring agents. And when heated, a lot of these agents can turn into formaldehyde and acrolein, which can be potentially carcinogenic. And there's more than 7,000 flavors out there and more than several hundred products. And so a lot of the products that are used in the e-juices, they may be safe for us to ingest, but these are products that are not meant to be inhaled. So for example, you can ingest flower products, but you really can't smoke or inhale flower. You're going to develop severe lung injury related to that. And so this is the lungs. The lungs, what I tell patients all the time is the lungs are probably the only organ system aside from the skin that's constantly exposed to the outside environment. And so we're getting direct effects upon inhalation. And throughout the entire respiratory system, there's different barriers that kind of protect us. You got the nose hairs, which kind of clear out or filter certain products. You get into the larynx, you get into the bronchus. But then once you get into the alveolar sacs, the alveoli, which are really the grape-like sacs that are important in gas exchange, you're talking about really fine particles, and we measure it in nanometers. And so less than 1 nanometer is the point where a substance can get into the alveoli. And we know that a lot of these vaporized products are less than 1 micrometer. And so it can certainly cause destruction of the alveolar sacs, which can lead to scarring and fibrosis. It can also lead to bronchiolitis, which is airway destruction, which can result in wheezing, shortness of breath, and oxygen deficits as well. So this is a study from the Harvard School of Public Health, and they really analyze a lot of the substances within that were released from e-cigarettes. And as one of the officers pointed out, diacetyl was found in about 75% of the flavored electronic cigarettes. The significance of diacetyl is that in the early 2000s, there was a popcorn plant where several workers, I think around 8 or 9 workers, actually developed very severe lung injury. They developed bronchiolitis obliterans, which is a condition which leads to constriction of the smooth muscles of the small airways. And that leads to significant shortness of breath, leads to oxygen difficulties, and it's a permanent and irreversible damage. Actually, I have one patient who's got it, and he's 20 years old due to inhalation injury from something else, and he's awaiting a lung transplant. And so what they found when they analyzed what these popcorn workers were exposed to was they found a high level of diacetyl. And so if diacetyl is found in a lot of these electronic cigarettes, the concern is that a lot of these products may also lead to long-term and permanent damage over time. And these are patients or individuals who are actually directly inhaling a lot of these vaporized products. There's also some case reports about other conditions like hypersensitivity pneumonitis, which is an allergic reaction, which can also cause scarring to the lungs. And if left untreated, that can also result in irreversible damage too. The problem is that this is a novel product, and we don't know what's going to happen over the long term. We don't know what's going to happen in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And that's really one of the biggest concerns, that a lot of times we don't see the effects of or the damage or the impact upon some of these behaviors until we're too late. Other components in vapor components that have been looked at, so nitrosamines, which are human carcinogens. There's a lot of other impurities that have been identified by the FDA. And you can see that formaldehyde, acetaldehyde, toluene, again, really life-threatening ingredients are seen also in e-cigarettes. Now, they may be present at a lesser degree than traditional cigarettes, but they're still evident. So there are plus and minuses in terms of the use of e-cigarettes. Certainly smoking is the leading cause of preventable premature deaths worldwide. It kills about 6 million people each year. And there's this movement towards harm reduction. So as discussed before, there's a lot of questions as to whether or not we should be promoting the use of e-cigarettes to help current active smokers wean themselves off traditional cigarettes, and perhaps using e-cigarettes, perhaps that would be a safer option. E-cigarettes, we know, do contain fewer toxic chemicals and lower carcinogens. There's not that combustion that occurs, and there's also less or fewer secondhand smoke complications. The problem is, or the downsides are, that e-cigarettes could serve as a gateway to conventional cigarettes, and vaping products may also result in misuse of other substances as well. E-cigarettes do contain toxins and carcinogens suspected of being harmful to humans. And the longer that e-cigarettes are sold without regulatory constraint and targeted at the youth, the concern is that with each subsequent generation, they're going to gain a foothold in the market before all the scientific data is in. So if some of you recall, this is some of the marketing that's done for traditional cigarettes. This is probably from the 1980s. And this is some of the stuff that's being released now for e-cigarettes. And you can see that they're pretty much following a lot of the same handbook as big tobacco used in the past. And with each subsequent year, you can see that the operating profits of e-cigarette companies have continued to rise. This is around like a $6 or $7 billion industry at this point. And as tobacco products or the profits are falling, you can understand why big tobacco is also getting involved in this industry as well. So just to summarize, in 2014, the current use of e-cigarettes by young adults 18 to 24 has actually surpassed that of 25 years of age and older in adults. And e-cigarettes are the most commonly used tobacco products among youth. And in Bedford, as we know in 2015 with the Bedford Youth Survey, about 25% of high school students reported having used vapor-related products. The use of products containing nicotine poses significant dangers to the youth, pregnant women, and also fetuses. And the former Surgeon General deemed the use of nicotine products of any form to be unsafe. Nicotine, especially in young adults, can lead to significant anxiety, depression, and other mood disorders. It may also enhance the likelihood of addiction. It may lead to attention deficits and also concentration difficulties, as well as neurologic problems down the road in terms of cognitive function. E-cigarettes contain tobacco products, but it also has a lot of heavy metals and a lot of pollutants, and a lot of times we actually don't know what some of these products contain. And some researchers have actually pulled various e-juices, analyzed them, and what they've labeled as containing certain items, it's not accurate. There's really no long-term cancer risk associated with low-level exposure. There's no data supporting that. There's also no long-term cardiovascular or lung effects of e-cigarettes have been proven. But I think that with time, we're going to have a little bit more information about it. The rise of e-cigarettes also raises concerns regarding illicit drug use. Like I said, you can pretty much use any of these vaping products to vape pretty much anything. And the amount of information that's available nowadays in terms of experimentation is pretty remarkable and pretty concerning. So this is this is a document from Brown and Williamson Tobacco Company. This is a subsidiary of British American Tobacco in 1969. And the quote is, as the mass public, our product is really doubt. And so you see a lot of this. A lot of the vaping companies, e-cigarette companies, and even big tobacco really emphasize a lot of questions as to the data regarding safety. And so they raise questions as to whether or not e-cigarettes are a better alternative than traditional cigarettes. And there's some data and some validity to that. But the biggest concern is that we're replacing one product with another, and it's going to lead to more complications down the road. So we're going to replace one problem with another. And so that's it.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. And thank you. Great presentation, right? And thanks to Officer Donahue Spike and Officer Nightingale, our SROs. So we have about 10 or 15 minutes for questions, and so the ground rule is you raise your hand, I'll come over to you, get you on the mic so that it can be captured, and go ahead with your question. So who wants to ask the first question?
Wow.
Raise your hand. Come on. Okay. Here we go.
So with all of this information and all of this data, and you as our resource officers on our team, how do we as parents communicate this to our kids in a way that's competitive with the way they're being marketed to?
Great question.
That's a great question.
I think you could start I think you could start by going online and doing some research, just like we did when it came to this, Because again, they're being told that it's good and it's not dangerous and stuff. But if you actually go online, they'll tell you the facts. But you'll also see in the other side, they'll say, oh, that's not true, that's not true. But but it is. If you look at, you got to look at the websites that you're on too, like medical ones and things like that. They tell you the truth instead of going. If you go on something like Vape World, they'll tell you, it's not bad and things like that. So, but I think going online is one of the big ones.
I think the answer to the question is the first thing is to come here to the presentations, right? Get a lot of information about it so that you can make your own decision and go back, and maybe you'll get enough information from this to be able to do some additional research, right?
And create a
But-
conversation in the family.
But it starts the conversation, right? And it took how many hundreds of years for technology, medical science to determine that tobacco products kill people. And so now what's happening is that I think with youth, they will hinge just like they do with prescription drug abuse. Well, it's prescription drugs. It can't be bad for you. It's not going to hurt you. And so they're going to hinge their thoughts and their patterns and decisions based on some of the data that's out there. Some of it's true, just like the doctor said. There is no large body of knowledge, but it is a growing body of knowledge, which is true, that it can be harmful, right? The other thing that's going to come out, and you may have heard this recently, the Justice Department won a suit against Big Tobacco in 1999. They've been litigating that case since that time, and just recently now, it's finally come to an end, and part of that suit requires Big Tobacco to go out and publicly announce to the public that smoking kills people. So they have to run ads starting soon. You're going to start seeing those on commercial and other media forums that the government is making Big Tobacco put that information out there. Guess what? That's going to drive more and more people to what they think is a safer alternative to Big Tobacco. Any other questions?
So as Spike was saying, in terms of talking with people who are using, one of the things that I hear often in the work that I do is talking with people about the increase. They're finding that they're smoking more often with the vapes than they are with traditional cigarettes if they are trying to transition, as you were talking about, from one to the other in order for smoking cessation, with nicotine and that sort of traditional tobacco product. So I'm curious, in talking with you, Doctor, as far as the increases that people are reporting that their use is significantly more with the e-products, is there a risk for people with secondhand smoke to these products as they are with the other nicotine products? And do you have any information on that increase in terms of, any other effects to the lungs by just merely smoking more often, thinking that it's safer?
Doc, that's for you, I guess.
I guess so. Do I need to?
No, your mic.
I can just talk?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So I know that they've actually looked at the amount of nicotine that is actually obtained with each e-cigarette, and it's pretty variable. And that's one of the scary parts, which is depending on how hot some of these e-cigarettes get to, and also how deep one puffs, you can get a variable amount of nicotine product. And so there's really very little sense as to exactly how much nicotine one person is getting at one time. In terms of the use of e-cigarettes for smoking cessation, it's a pretty controversial topic, even in the medical literature. It goes down to harm reduction versus complete abstinence, similar to a lot of the discussions that were engaged when issues centering around methadone maintenance for heroin use was raised. So there are some doctors and also some researchers who say that it's a better option than traditional cigarette usage, and then others who say that it's a gateway drug to traditional cigarettes. In terms of overusage, certainly it's a big concern. You can certainly get nicotine toxicity. It can lead to various physiologic changes. Blood pressure, heart rate, heart arrhythmias can also develop due to overusage of nicotine. You can also develop nicotine poisoning. And so there are certainly a lot of concerns from that regard too. I think that a lot of the people who use e-cigarettes are just, for whatever reason, they're very passionate about using e-cigarettes. And I don't know if you guys have seen this too.
Yeah, I did.
And you know, they really they go against conventional wisdom, and they're going to do everything that they can to kind of combat a lot of the literature that's out there, and you see that in a lot of the websites too.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to cover again what Assistant Principal Jaskowska said about what the ramifications are for possession or use on school grounds, anywhere on school grounds, right? Which
Yes.
is treated equivalent to drug.
The drug paraphernalia, yep. Every situation is different, but most of them fit in the category of drug paraphernalia. So they think it's just tobacco, but no, next to know they have a drug paraphernalia, on their record.
I was just wondering if the school is doing anything, like in particular, about it, because you hear from, I have a high schooler, it's on the bus and the bathrooms. It just seems like it's everywhere. So I know they can't be everywhere at all times, but I just wonder if there's anything particular that they're doing. Like I said, we said a couple weeks ago, I actually went in and spoke to the teachers and educated them on what some of the stuff is. And we actively look all the time now that we know it's a hot thing, because we're looking for the smells. Because they don't blow the smoke like you see of the vapors, but we get the smells, and that's what we look for. Like if they use the bathrooms, things like that. That's why I encourage all of you, come up after and smell some of this stuff. Because if someone's smoking or vaping, you're going to smell it.
In terms of just recent information about crossover between vaping and marijuana, the only study that I found was a study in Connecticut that was done a few years ago with high schoolers, and 18% of those that were vaping crossed over and used marijuana as well. The other scary part for parents is that there's products being sold now, right, for vaping products that mask, whereas Spike said that you can't hardly smell it. Now they're marketing products that you can't smell. So you could technically be smoking marijuana, drive in a car, we wouldn't know, right? Except for exhibiting the factors associated with the behavior, right? So you could have a teen, right, 19, 20 years old, would not know.
Just in terms of a delivery system, I saw you mention alcohol. Can it create an intoxicating effect sufficient to, cause somebody to be drunk off of vaping alcohol?
I'm going to leave that one to you.
Yeah, I'm not sure about vaping alcohol, especially you would think that a lot of the alcohol would actually dissipate. So I'm not, the problem is that when you read into it, a lot of people are experimenting on just random,
Whatever they can. Yep.
substances.
It's not their bloodstream, but it's going in there.
That's the biggest concern, which is there's a lot of things that you can eat, right? So you can consume a lot of different products. It's going to be metabolized by the kidneys or liver. It's going to be cleared. It's safe. And so a lot of the regulation bodies have deemed them to be safe. These are not things that you should be inhaling. That's a totally different issue altogether, and that's the biggest concern.
A couple more questions before we have to end. Yes.
I was just curious when you do the drugs, the dogs come in at the high school and whatever. Now they can't smell these, correct? So all the students who have them in their pockets, their backpacks, they're totally fine. Okay.
Unless they have marijuana.
Unless it's marijuana.
Unless it's marijuana, then they can smell the marijuana.
Yeah.
Right.
Can someone explain to me the difference between the vaping and the hookah? Because I know that now the kids going off to college, there are hookah bars all over off campus.
It's just a different device that you receive it from. A hookah is a larger device. Usually it's tabletop or up against a wall with the power source, and it's not portable. And versus all of these devices are portable. That's
all the same thing.
It's the same way. It's the same type of mechanism, and just the different device.
A couple more questions. Sir.
This is kind of a medical question and a legal question. Is nicotine a drug?
It is.
Yes.
Okay, and we have a drug-free zone, so what is the penalty in the state of New Hampshire for violating a drug-free zone?
Under the New Hampshire RSA, a single offense is $100, at least $100, and 20 hours of community service or a combination of both. So each individual offense, that's how we would enact that.
For minors?
Yes,
Minors.
for minors.
And the issue is really what is the drug? There are a lot of prescription drugs that you can legally possess within a school zone. What we're talking about is what's illicit in terms of substances that are either illicit per se, in other words, no one of any age can possess, or illicit based on some other parameter such as age.
two-part question. One is, what age do you start, you might know this, talking about it in the schools? And then are not only the effects of vaping, but also the repercussions? And then say, if a kid is suspended, do they also have to pay the $100 fine and do 20 hours of community service?
Every situation is different. Usually, lately, we've been letting the school handle that, so they've been doing the school penalties. So that's how we've been handling it lately, but I think as it gets ramped up more, I think we might have to start looking at charging them too. But we've been, right now, we've just been going on the school consequences.
Does it start in like 5th grade health class?
I'm not sure. I know it's definitely in McKelvey. In 5th and 6th grade, it doesn't. I'm not sure about the lower elementaries where they start that, but it's definitely in 5th and 6th grade.
What we do know about substance abuse at any age is that it's more effective to start the conversation as young as you feel comfortable in talking to your children. The younger, the better. Where we once thought, 10 or 15, 20 years ago, that drug and substance abuse reduction education should occur maybe in high school only, it's too late by then. Now the thinking is, well, middle school, it's too late by then, perhaps, for some. So the younger, the better, depending on how you feel comfortable in talking to your own kids at whatever age you think that they can handle that kind of conversation. But get educated about what you need to talk to them about in terms of the fact that you're going to tell them the truth. You're going to hear a lot of things about this stuff that is going to tell you or make you think that it's no problem, medically or legally. Well, we thought that about tobacco smoking 50 years ago, and now where are we, right? So just because we don't know doesn't mean it's not bad. We just don't know, and that's not a good thing in terms of health. We're at 8:05. One more question, and then we're going to have...
Actually, this is more of a comment to a question that Joy asked. How do we talk to our kids about vaping? And as we know, there is a lot of uncertainty, a long-term effect. But one thing I want to underscore what Dr. Ho said, that nicotine is definitely addictive and has a major effect on developing brain in regard to increase in anxiety and depression, impulse control. We have other experts in regard to mental health, but if you look into statistics, in 2012, interesting thing happened. With the increase in smartphone usage, we also saw statistically significant increase in mood disorders, depression, anxiety. Kids are going to live with smartphones. Do we really want to introduce another object, another crutch into their lives that will make this worse? And this may be something that you may want to discuss with your kids, because we know the effect of nicotine is as such that will not help.
Thank you, Doctor. So, Dr. Ho from Dartmouth, I can get that out easier than pulmonologist. The words are Thank you for coming. Really informative. And I want to thank Spike, our SRO in the high school complex, and SRO Nightingale. We now have 2 SROs in Bedford, right? Great.
And we want to keep it that way.
So, thank you all for coming. Great turnout. We hold these every month. BeBOLD needs your help. We need more volunteers. So please see any of us that are on the executive board afterwards or at any time. Go on the BeBOLD website. This is important information, and this is how we get it out to the community. This is how we educate and learn. This is how we move society toward a better place. So become part of BeBOLD. Next month, we're going to be talking about marijuana legalization. Is decriminalization legal? Is legalization coming? Is it inevitable? Is it not inevitable? What do you need to know about marijuana legalization coming up? That'll be December 18th? 18th? Yes, December 18th, right here, 7 p.m., Bedford Library. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.